What happened after the Rebels won in Return of the Jedi? How did everyone else perceive the win? Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and we break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then we read it dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Today we're going to be discussing the Star Wars comic Shattered Empire. This is canon, and it's the bridge comic between the movies The Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. Star Wars is classic, a universe in which an evil empire is trying to take control and a rebellion is trying to stand up against it. A universe where beings known as Jedis exist, and we can soar amongst the stars for adventure. And at the end of the movie Return of the Jedi, the rebellion won by defeating the Emperor and blowing up their last Death Star. That's when Shara went back to the base worried. The rebellion had lost so many soldiers in this fight. Her commander came over to congratulate her, but he could see the worried look on her face. I'm sure he came through fine, Shara. Everyone went down to Endor to celebrate. And while Lando and Han Solo were arguing about the state of the Millennium Falcon, Shara came over to speak with General Solo. She asked him the location of his strike team, the Spec Force Pathfinders. And he told her the whole team was over in the nearby hut. So worried and panicked, she walked over there, dreading the worst. That is, until she found Sergeant Kes Dameron, her husband. He asked her if she worried about him, and she played it off, telling him not even a little, and he called her a liar. He then held her close and they gazed into the stars. What should we do now that it's over? And she looked back into his eyes. I have a few ideas. And then they kiss under the moonlight to their victory. Shara wakes up to her husband getting his gear on. The Pathfinders have been called together because General Solo has another mission. They found an Imperial holdout on the far side of the moon, and as he says, seems like no one told them that they lost. Of course, her husband is involved, and once General Solo tells his men that he's going to look for pilots, Shara volunteers. They fly in low to avoid radar, and they come in guns blazing as per General Solo's orders. Walkers get dropped and the stormtroopers scramble to try and figure out how to respond, and Shara's husband leans in over the gunfire and explosions to ask her a question, to let her know what he thinks. I was thinking that we need to find a nice planet and build a house. Heck of a time to tell me! The Pathfinders then all jump out of the ship and they begin firing at the stormtroopers in person, while Shara is left watching them go in, and the worry begins to set in once again. Worried? Why would I be worried, Mr. Find a nice planet and build a house? Oh, sorry, I gotta go get shot some more. Love you, babe. And that worried look gets worse. But a few hours later, General Solo comes out. We got the information, but this isn't over. 17 days later, Shara finds herself in a dogfight over Gawa City. The information that they found has led them to the last bastions of the Empire, and they're trying to take out the city. The fighting hasn't stopped, and both Shara and her husband are separated again on different missions. But her commander, Green 2, can tell that Shara's heart isn't in this anymore. She has a life waiting for her, and her husband has submitted his paperwork to get out of the rebellion. So, Green 2 went ahead and submitted hers. He knows that this is what she wants, and he gave her an easy job as one of her last jobs. Princess Leia's escort. She's going to Naboo to see the situation of the Emperor's homeworld, but just her and her escort. They don't want to attract much attention. As they fly to Naboo, Leia is writing various letters to the families of the rebellion that died in the fight, something that she hates doing. Shara asks her why she doesn't have a personal assistant or a robot do the work for her, but she says that she wants to add a personal touch. She doesn't want anyone doing this work for her. She feels it needs to come from her. They land at Naboo, and of course the governor is all frazzled. No one told him that Princess Leia was coming. Meanwhile, Kes is pushing through the battlefield with General Solo, trying to find a little bit more information. They're loading up their rocket launchers and they take out an entire base with ease. But just as they're finally starting to win, a scout trooper gets the drop on Kes, gun to his head and everything. He would have been dead, if not for Chewbacca grabbing the soldier by the throat and lifting him off the ground, then throwing him aside. Back with Shara and Princess Leia, their talks with the new queen are placed on hold as a massive unnatural storm begins overhead. Shara sees this as an Imperial attack very quickly, and Princess Leia decides that Naboo needs to mount a defense, but the Emperor has had all of Naboo's military decommissioned 20 years ago. The Queen informs Princess Leia that the information isn't entirely correct. The old starship bays are still functional, and if they can find ships with fuel and power, they might stand a chance. So they all head over, and Shara realizes that these ships need an astromech droid, which means that in order to fly them, it'll be a manual pilot. And they only have 3 working ships. She knows that this is a suicide mission for the fate of Naboo, and the only other 2 viable pilots are Princess Leia herself and the Queen of Naboo. Before she was elected, she was conveniently a starfighter pilot. They all suit up and they take off into battle. 3 Naboo fighters versus the Empire's entire push for this planet. The plan is to have them destroy the devices that are causing the communications interference and the unnatural storms. And they do take out the device, but then they see the next problem. All of the TIE fighters from the invading force are coming to fight them. They maneuver as quickly as they can and they shoot whoever gets in their way. But they all know that this is the end. Shara, Princess Leia, and the Queen of Naboo are doomed. That is until General Lando Calrissian comes into the rescue. They got word from General Solo's team that this was the next location on the remaining members of the Empire's agenda. And the rebellion once again prevails over the Empire. No one can stop the rebellion. And when they return, Shara jumps into Kess's arms. Shara and Kess return to the Rebel Fleet Command, where she asked her commander if this was ever going to end. And he tells her not to think of it that way, otherwise they'll be fighting for the sake of fighting. He then gets into his X-Wing and he says goodbye to Shara, telling her that it's time to pick a world to settle on. At that moment, a little astromech droid rolls up and begins to beep at her. So she follows it around the corner into a lone ship all by itself with a hooded man standing in front of it. The man lowers his hood and he introduces himself as Luke Skywalker. And the droid is R2-D2, also known as R2. She tells him that she knows who he is, everyone knows who he is. So he explains that he sent R2 to find him a pilot. He has a little mission, and she tells him that she'd be honored. He explains as they head off to the location that they are going to a secret Imperial base, and that she will go in disguise as a high-ranking individual within the Imperial Army. This location is keeping a Jedi artifact, and he wants to get it back. So they land, and Shara plays her part perfectly. She explains that she is here for an inspection of the artifact, and that the man in the cloak is her bodyguard. But as they enter the chamber keeping the artifact, the man that brought them in tells them they almost had him. But the woman that Shara is supposed to be acting as is missing an eye. So he asks them, what are these artifacts supposed to be? Why are they so important that they had to risk everything to get them back? Because they just look like trees to him. Luke explains that these are 2 trees that were located at the Jedi Temple, and they're filled with the Force. He then throws his cloak aside and R2 throws his lightsaber to him. He begins blocking all of the shots the stormtroopers are firing while Shara runs over to get the trees. The blasters keep shooting and she ducks behind Luke just as they get a minigun ready to take him down. He then holds his hand up and with the Force he throws it to the ceiling before jumping on top of the soldiers. Shara and Luke then run out of the building and back to the docking bay where they can see their escape. They can see the exit! But that's when they throw grenades at Luke and Shara sees them and he yells out for him. So he turns, holds his hand up, and he catches them all midair. They then fall to his feet where they explode around his body. With Shara looking in shock where he stood, he tells her that we're done here, and he boards the ship. As they return to base, Luke asks her if she's leaving the service. R2 overheard what she was talking to her commander about, and she tells him that she has a son that she's barely seen and a husband that she sees maybe twice a month. She feels tired, but guilty if she leaves, and she doesn't want to abandon the rebellion. So Luke asks her, if you are here fighting, then what are we fighting for? I only ask because I wasn't expecting 2 trees, and I'd like the other one to go to a good home. So, that's what happened. Kess and Shara found a world that they could settle on and raise their son, and they protected and guarded one of the last trees of the Force from the Jedi Temple. They had a purpose, and they still worked for the rebellion, while living their lives. I hope you guys enjoyed this little comic, bridging the gap between Return of the Jedi and the latest movie of Force Awakens. I personally thought it was great to see what each one of the characters was doing after the movie from the eyes of somebody who just wanted to go away from it all. If you did enjoy Star Wars, please give this a like because we do intend on bringing you a lot more books in December, and how many likes this gets is going to decide how many we actually do. I'm Benny the Comicstorian, and make sure you check out the other videos on the screen right now. You just might like those too.